So everything that Abraham is going to do is to be involved in worship. So he puts the wood upon the lad. He's got the knife. He's got the fire. All of those things were necessary for the burnt offering. And they start off up the mountain. Well, Isaac is kind of looking around to see what's going on, you know, as they're walking up the mountain. And he says, Father, I see you've got the knife. I know we've got the wood here. I see you've got the fire there. But I'm just wondering, where is the offering for the sacrifice? Where is the offering? And Abraham simply turned to him and said, God will provide himself. God will provide himself an offering. And we don't read where Isaac argued with him or said, well, I don't understand, you know, please explain more. No, he just marches up the hill. First of all, I want you to notice that if you go to worship the Lord, you better ascend first. You will not worship God in the lowlands of human experience. When Jesus Christ talked to the woman at the well, they ended up talking about worship. Because the woman thought on this, the basis of worship, that she had something that she could argue with Jesus Christ. And she said to him, she said, you know, we worship God in this mountain, Mount Gerizim, but you tell me that we really are supposed to go to Jerusalem. And so Jesus replied to her and said, Lady, neither in this mountain nor in Jerusalem will we worship, or will you worship God. But those that worship God will not go to some location as religion has taught us. Religion says you go to church to worship God. It's on Sunday morning that's when we worship God. Because you see, one of the popes, many, many years before, had issued a decree that because Israel, the Jews, worshipped on Saturday, which was their Sabbath, the Pope said, well now, we're not going to worship on the Sabbath, we are Christians. And so he said, we're going to change, we're going to have a different day. So he selected Sunday as the day to worship God. That was the Pope. And of course, he didn't actually tell the people, nor did he tell the Protestants that bought the whole deal when our Bible came over to us, because it's really a translation of the Bishop's Bible, you know, our King James Version. And remember that the translators were told, you're not to change any of the accepted doctrines of the church. You've got to leave them the same. So we bought the whole deal from the Catholic Church. And we worshiped on Sunday. That's where we all started, wasn't it? We went to church on Sunday. But they didn't tell us that Sunday was the day of the worship of the sun god. Well, that was smart, wasn't it? So the sun god got an extra deal for free. And the Christians gave it to them. And so it's been in our heart, Sunday is the day of worship. But I want to tell you it's got nothing to do with God. Nothing. There was only one day that God said was special, and that was the Sabbath, the seventh day. Now, I'm not suggesting we should go back and worship on Saturday, because it's got nothing to do with days. It's got nothing to do with locality. It's got nothing to do with days or anything that belongs to the earth. As a matter of fact, Jesus said to the woman, those that worship God must worship Him in spirit. And I want to tell you, I go into a lot of places, a lot of churches, into a lot of situations, and rarely do I hear true spiritual worship. Why? Well, it's like everything else. It's like getting saved. You want to get saved? Then you do this and this and this and this, and now you're born again, you go to heaven when you die. Well, worship's been the same thing. You can dance a little bit. You can sing a little bit. You can sing in tongues if you want to, or you can speak in tongues, and so on and so on. And so we learn the formula, and then we think we are worshiping God. I want to tell you, beloved, worship is something far more than most people have ever understood. I just want to share a little bit of it. I'm not, what shall we say, a great preacher or even a great theologian or anything of that nature. But God has taught me a few things. So it says, on the third day Abraham lifted up his eyes and began to ascend the hill. Isaiah tells us that the house of the Lord is on the top of the mountain. In other words, it's the pinnacle of our spiritual experience. And your spiritual experience has to allow you to rise. Just like Jacob, when he was sleeping there at Bethel, and he had that dream and saw that ladder. And on that ladder, you'll notice that the messengers were ascending and descending. They weren't descending and then ascending. They didn't come from up there. They came from down here. That God was showing him that there would be a people on this earth who would desire to rise to a higher level than this earth could show us. Yes. See? And so they were ascending. Where did they go? They went into the presence of the Lord. Turn with me to Ezekiel 44. Ezekiel 44. And in this chapter, we are given a very clear account of ministry or worship or whatever, where it begins and where it ends. And the Lord said to me, verse 2, the gate shall be shut, it will not be opened. This is the gate of the outward sanctuary. It'll be shut and will not be opened, and no man shall enter in by it into the sanctuary of the Lord. It is for the prince. The prince, he will sit in it to eat bread before the Lord, and he shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate, and shall go out by way of the same. So the prince, Jesus Christ, would come in through that gate into the sanctuary of the Lord.